You know, you hear a lot these days about being gluten-free. A lot of people feel like that's a trend. Maybe that's something you should do. Well, we're going to find out more about it today. Talking with the clinical nutrition manager from LDS Hospital, Barbara Sherwood. And she knows a little thing or two about nutrition. Thanks for being here, Barbara.
Yeah, I know a couple things. Thanks for having me.
So how do we know if we should be gluten-free? Everyone seems to be doing that. You see it in your bread. You see it on grocery stores. How do we know if that's good for us?
Well, there's a little bit of misconception that gluten is a bad thing. However, if you have celiac disease or if you're gluten intolerant, gluten can set off an autoimmune response in your body, which can cause, bloating, discomfort, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, whole bucket of things that you aren't very comfortable.
Right. So if you have one of those conditions, gluten's not good for you.
Possibly. So it's always a good idea to check with your doctor. So one way to find out if you have celiac disease.
Which is what, by the way?
Celiac disease is an autoimmune disease in which gluten sets off a response from your immune system. And your immune system basically attacks the lining of your small intestine, which causes problems. It damages it, so you no longer absorb nutrients the way you should. So you have malnutrition. You can be anemic, meaning your iron gets very low, feel lethargic, a lot of different symptoms. So it's hard to nail down any one symptom for somebody, but if you have different various symptoms that are related to this, it's a good time to go into your doctor to get a blood test and also a scope.
You can find out whether or not there's a more serious issue going on inside your stomach.
Exactly,
right.
Yeah. So you don't want to, it might not be gluten, it could be something more serious, so you definitely want to get that checked out.
Now you mentioned a couple of things that happens when you have celiac disease, but what are some of the outward things that people would notice if they have that kind of condition?
Especially in children. Let's say that your child has, irritable bowel, always has an upset stomach, and is not gaining weight well. It could be that they could have celiac disease in which they're no longer absorbing their nutrients, which causes malnutrition and can cause short stature or slow growth in children. Right. And then also, if you're an adult, if you feel lethargic and you feel like you're eating enough and you're not gaining weight and you're just don't have energy, you feel depressed, that could be a sign too.
So the first step is going in to see your doctor to find out whether or not it's a more serious issue.
Yeah, you can get a blood test to see if you do have celiac disease, and then they can follow that up with a scope to look at what it looks like in your intestines.
And how much of a difference will it make, let's say, if you cut gluten out of your diet and then you have celiac disease, right? You get the blood work, the doctor says, yep, this is your condition, gluten's not going to help you out. How much of a difference does that make to go gluten-free at that point?
It may not be immediate. It may take a couple weeks, but you'll start feeling better. But celiac disease is an autoimmune disease, so it's a lifelong commitment to being gluten-free. So if you start feeling better, don't put gluten back because it'll slowly come back. And the healing time is different for each person, so it could take a few days, it could take a few weeks.
So you definitely want to be able to make sure you're ready for a lifestyle change if this is the case.
Exactly.
And what happens if you don't come back and the results are negative? I don't know whether positive or negative comes back, but if you don't have the disease, what should you do about your diet at that point if you're still feeling like you get the symptoms but don't have the actual disease?
Well, there are various levels of gluten intolerance as well. So it's not a bad thing to eliminate something that you feel is making you feel bad out of your diet. Similar to a tree nut allergy.
Right, this is what I have.
Yes,
right.
Exactly. So if you have an allergy to something and it sets you off, you definitely want to eliminate, see how you feel. The same with gluten. There's a lot of people with gluten intolerance, so eliminating breads that are made from wheat. There's rice breads, rice flour bread out there as well. So you can go through to see if that. There may be other things in your diet that can contribute to it, but not just jumping to the gluten-free bandwagon, because it may not have anything to do with gluten. It may be some other food item that you're consuming on a regular basis.
All right, so some good ideas to be able to digest right there. So if you want to get more information, find out where you sit, kind of maybe where you can go to get some more information, where do we go?
You can go to LDS Hospital, intermountainhealthcare.org, and there you go.
We'll have, of course, you see the link right there on our screen. If you want more information, we'll have a link to that on our website, goodforutah.com. We're talking with Barbara Sherwood, who is the clinical nutrition manager at LDS Hospital. A lot of food for thought.
Yes.
Barbara.
Yeah.
There you go. We'll be back after this.
Painting for Good Things Utah provides